One time I stole your question though, and I was like, oh no, I didn't mean to do
Oh,
that.
that's okay. One time I stole your question.
I saw that.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Beyond Comfort. I'm Michelle,
And I'm Elle.
and we are so glad you've joined us today because this is going to be an interesting one.
For the last couple of episodes, we've focused on relationship women have with their social media identity, trying to figure out how and why we might disconnect from the images that make up our profiles.
I know it was a bit of a side quest for what we normally do on Beyond Comfort, but I'm really happy that we got to share so many different perspectives and experiences with you all, and today is really no different. But if you haven't listened to the past 2 episodes, I would pause this one, go back and listen to those, and then come back to this one for it to all piece together.
Exactly. And to wrap up this mini-series today, we are joined with PhD candidate Victoria Kratel.
Victoria is a PhD candidate at Christina University of Applied Sciences in the Communications Department and has several publications on the phenomenon of digital disconnection.
As you all know, we've heard from real women's experiences. We've gone out of our comfort zones to test our authenticity, and essentially we've done our own research, but we want to hear from someone who's been in the field and can draw from connections we built to provide us with some more context.
Exactly. So without further ado, please welcome all the way from Norway, Victoria Kratel.
My name is Victoria Kratel. I'm a PhD student in Oslo, Norway, and my PhD project or role focuses on digital disconnection. That is, practices of media use, but not complete media abandonment. It's all about kind of finding the right balance. And I bring in a specific feminist angle. So I'm very curious about how women deal with online and offline life, specifically women in emerging adulthood. This is from 18 to 29. And I'm especially interested in this because I'm in that age group myself, and I'm also interested in creative approaches. Right now, I'm working a lot with utopian thought, and I just finished my data collection, so I'm now in the writing phase. So
Ooh.
I'm not really taking any time off this summer. I mean, every here and then, but right now I'm kind of in the, how do you say, crunch time of my project.
What drew you to these topics? Like, what made you want to do this research?
So for me, it was kind of a more or less a professional decision because during my master's, I really got this interest into theory and research and just empirical data collection and so on. So then the idea of doing a PhD came up. And then I looked into different projects, and then I started a PhD in Germany that was also centered on that project. And then I jumped ship to another project in Norway that all surrounded digital disconnection, media non-use. And it really felt like a topic that I aligned with because it's so highly relevant, and it's something when I bring it up at birthday parties or just family gatherings, everyone has an opinion on it. So it really felt worth looking deeper into it.
Yeah, for sure. No, that makes sense. I think that's one of the best things about doing research is when you find something that people can relate on and they'll start giving their opinions. Because originally, when I started doing this, I was like, nobody's going to have anything to say. And
Mm.
every person has been like, oh, I'm so glad you're doing this, or nobody talks about it or whatnot. So that definitely feels good. And then I'm curious. So my research mainly focuses on how the actual self and the social media identity kind of disconnect, and yours is
Mm.
more so digital disconnection. So could you walk us through some of the main reasons why someone might want to digitally detox?
Mm. So when we look into history, people always try to find the right balance between media and life without media. So we can observe that when cinema came up, or when printing books came up, or when TV made its way into everyone's home. So you might remember these kind of cupboard thingies where you can put the TV in there, and then it has these little doors that you can open and close. So people or media users were always intrigued by the idea of navigating media consumption, media non-consumption. But especially nowadays, with digital media and especially our smartphones being available anywhere at any time, people really struggle to find the right balance, right? So, I mean, we have heard about maybe getting square shaped eyes from watching too much TV as children, or people becoming addicted to video games. But now we can really see when we're in public transport how everyone is looking at their devices. It really has become this self-help discourse where people actively seek advice. And that's one of the main reasons they feel like they spend too much time online and really miss out on the offline fun. It's
Yeah.
all about this fear of missing out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. I think that because with our smartphones, we just have such easy access to being distracted on like social media, just in general on our phones. It's changed the game for sure. Like just in 2025, it's so different on how it used to be. So that's it's so interesting that you say that. And then what would you say that a user needs to do successfully to like actually detox?
That's such a tough question. I get that asked quite a lot. I have to admit that I'm not from the psychology background where I can really say do certain tactics help or not, but I definitely know a couple of them. So something that is really important in our research when we're at this juncture where we're not really finding the solutions, but we're
Mhm.
just asking more and more questions.
Mm-hmm.
But something that we really encounter a lot is that people want to regain control. And I believe that using digital media, no matter if it's social media platforms or just being on your tablet or being on your smartphone, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're out of control. I think we also have this very harsh opinion towards media use and that it's inherently a waste of time. So I think the best thing, and this is like a blend of my personal opinion and what I'm doing in my PhD, is that if you really find ways to enjoy digital media where you really think, okay, this was time worth spending on the screen, then that's a good thing. So there are certain tactics where you can decide that you have off times. So that would be no digital devices after 9 p.m. before you go to bed. But I'm also intrigued by the idea of having go times where you're like, okay, this is my 1 hour where I really scroll all over TikTok and you don't have to have any bad conscience because you made the conscious decision to just really indulge in an online life. So I think that's an interesting way to go about it. But then you would find a little bit more niche ways, like going on a digital detox. So people who use Lent, for example, and then they say, okay, I'm not going to use Instagram during that time. Or people actually spending money and going to digital detox camps. That's also something that is weirdly very popular in Silicon Valley.
Yeah, I've
That
And a
never
lot
heard
of
of that.
Silicon
no,
Valley
we
workers
yeah.
then spend their holidays. There is a camp named Camp Grounded, and that's very known for targeting Silicon Valley workers spending some
Wow.
offline time there. Yeah.
That's yeah, that's it. I've never heard of that, but
No.
that the fact that that's a thing is just kind of
I,
crazy, like how our lives have been so dependent on our phones where you have to go somewhere.
yeah, pay somebody money to take away your phone
Yeah.
essentially.
Mhm.
But I think you asked an important question about how, like, if you actually enjoyed spending time on your phone
Mhm.
during that time. Like, I always, if I'm scrolling on TikTok for too long, I feel guilty. But
Mhm.
then if I'm posting a nice post for a birthday, for example, then I feel so rewarded. Like, I feel good about it and spending my time on my phone. So I feel like that's a great, important question that people can kind of ask themselves
Yeah.
Mhm.
when they're on their phone.
Yeah, and I also feel like there was a strong parallel there when you mentioned control. So I feel like a lot of the participants that we talked to, they wanted control in the sense of like how they curate themselves, how they
Mhm.
are perceived and things like that. Whereas users more so on your end kind of want control of when they go on or how long they go on social media for or on their phone in general. And I think it does make a parallel because in the sense like if you're being a little bit more true to yourself and asking yourself, oh, is this making me happy? Is this adding value or anything like that? Then it feels almost less like dirty or like, I don't know if that's the
Mhm.
right word to
Mhm.
use.
That's perfect.
In our email chat, you mentioned that you just started conducting a study with women aged between 18 to 29. So,
Mhm.
what, if anything, can you tell us about this research?
A lot.
Oh, you can? Okay, okay.
I don't know where to begin. This is where we'll be very, very nerdy.
Okay.
My study is grounded in a very creative approach.
Mhm,
So what I did is that I invited women to take part in an interview, and at first they participated in a creative exercise where I asked them, imagine an ideal world, what role would your smartphone play in it? And then they could answer in different ways. So some of them drew little pictures, and some of them just answered with bullet points, and some of them wrote little texts. And yeah, the main element in all of these prompt outcomes was that they really desire a balance between online and offline life. So it was never this big tech utopia with flying cars and flying smartphones. That didn't happen, but it was also not the opposite where they're like, okay, I don't want any technology at all. But interestingly, they touched on a lot of topics that you also mentioned when it comes to presenting oneself online. And what really stood out to me is how multidimensional the women became through that, because we often have the conception that it's all about showing your best self online and then having this pressure of meeting the most recent trend and the really unrealistic beauty standards. And that really is all true, but it's different for people in different age groups. And there's also always an individual component. So something that really stood out is that a lot of the women, specifically those more in their later 20s, said, okay, I know how it feels to look at your phone and see other women and then compare yourself to them. But at the same time, now that I'm, let's say, 27, that's not really a thing for me because I've kind of been through that period and I've digested all of this. Doesn't mean that it doesn't affect these women at all anymore, but there's also this journey they go through. And then a lot of them also said that they, of course, want to show their best selves online and the nice pictures from their vacations, and that there is, of course, a lot of staged content. But at the same time, they really appreciated authentic or content that shows vulnerability, mainly by influencers. They wouldn't post this content themselves as private people, but they said that they observe a change in that direction. They also touched on body positivity influencers. And I think vulnerability really is the word here, where you can find not this polished image of people. That's kind of the main intersection with my topic, is that they said that they often don't post at all, that they're more observers and that they enjoy digital media and that they enjoy content, but that they themselves do not create that much content. And of course, it's not the binary where you say, okay, I'm not never posting at all. You can just post your one picture when you're on a vacation and then not post for a year. You don't have to make the decision. But I think that's also, it really gives, as I said, more dimension to people when you see it's never this, oh, am I going full influencer or am I never posting at all?
Yeah.
You
Right.
can always change that, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I definitely agree with what you were saying about how they enjoy like more positive content and what you're saying about control and curation and things like that. I think a lot of the women that we spoke to, they felt that kind of disconnect from their social media identity because they're posting this curated best version self. And they were like, I like to post this best version. Like, I wouldn't really want to do it any other way. But then for some women looking back on those photos, they weren't able to kind of connect to those moments and experiences because it's so curated or because,
Mm.
their mood didn't match up to right now based on when they took the photo and things like that. But some women were looking back and appreciative that they could see their best moments and be like, that's a time in my life where I was really happy I can be that again. And so it was interesting to see the balance and the difference between that. They crave authenticity and vulnerability, but at the same time, we're not essentially willing to do it ourselves. So then, what would be defined as positive or vulnerable content?
I think the content they referred to mainly was people crying
Mm.
and admitting that they had a very bad day. And that would usually not be something that they would do. And I could see, like, maybe especially when someone feels like they're sad and something has gone wrong, you can often observe how people want to communicate and then get soothed by others. But of course, there's this huge barrier of then taking that online.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of my participants who brought that sentiment forward really also saw how brave that act is in a world where you see a lot of curated content. So I think it's not only about authenticity. I think that's one aspect of it, but also to kind of swim against the stream
Hmm.
and then just do the exact opposite.
Yeah, for sure.
So then in your opinion, because that's like mainly what the
Mm.
participants were thinking on their version of authenticity, but in your
Mm.
opinion, how would you describe authenticity?
Oh, in my opinion, that is such a tough question. Um, so when I also have this interview catalog that all of my participants went through. And at a certain point in time, someone asked me if I have answered all these questions to rule out bias. And then I tried to answer the questions and I felt so helpless because that's the weird thing. I'm interacting with these topics all day and then I weirdly think I don't have an opinion. My personal opinion on authenticity isn't the harshest. I think that content is usually inherently authentic because I don't have the expectation of content really showing it all.
Hmm.
If you pose in a very fake way and you dress up to take that one picture, I mean, that's also telling.
Hmm.
It's not something we would consider real. It's this whole discussion about how do people enhance themselves, and then also when the whole filter functionalities come in. But at the same time, I think content is always telling in some kind of capacity, and I think it's completely okay that it's not capable of ever depicting a person to 100%.
Yeah.
And if that was possible, that would also be super scary.
Agreed.
um, but I mean, there's for me, it more translates into do I like certain content or not?
Yeah.
And is it authentic to who I am? So maybe it's more of the perception of me as a consumer.
Yeah.
No, for sure. That makes so much
Yeah,
sense.
that's a really good way
Yeah,
to
I'm
look at
putting
it.
at
I'm
it.
like thinking about all of my Instagram pictures, being like, apparently I'm not authentic. No, I'm just joking. Going off of that best self or best version that people want to put forth, which again, I completely agree is totally valid. And there shouldn't really be a need to try to show your full self. I mean, if people
Mm,
want to do that, absolutely. But like you said, it's not possible. But because we're kind of putting forth our best self, maybe best images from vacation or whatnot, it kind of draws this habitual instinct to constantly want to analyze your photos. I think,
mm,
especially with the younger age of the spectrum, like 18 to mid 20s, we're
mm.
constantly analyzing these images that make up our profiles. And so, if you can talk to this at all, would you say that constantly scrutinizing images of oneself is a reason why someone may want to detox or may want to digitally disconnect?
Yes, I think it's 100% a reason why people do it. And I think you can definitely see how this is more of a topic for women, but I can also see this being an important reason for young men to
Hmm.
detox as well. And something that is less drastic than maybe deleting your social media altogether. Something a lot of my participants mentioned is how they started to unfollow people that really set them under pressure. And that's also considered a practice of digital disconnection because, yeah, again, we're not thinking of this harsh binary of use versus non-use, but you can always kind of calibrate how much you use or not use digital media. And
Yeah.
I think, yeah, when it comes to constantly analyzing pictures of others and oneself, that can definitely contribute to people seeking more or less offline experiences or to really just go offline from that.
No, for sure.
There's also the thing of analyzing other people, comparing yourself to other people.
Mm,
But a lot of what I found is that people are comparing themselves to themselves as well. And that one is
mm,
kind of a little bit more interesting on the end of, maybe I looked better or better in quotation marks a year ago when I had a different color hairstyle, when I wore fake eyelashes. And it's just like a constant. So if you're, even if we're not doing it with other people, we're doing it with ourselves. But I could definitely
mm,
see how for younger men, especially that there's a lot of content out there for like the gym and bodybuilding and stuff like that, I
mm,
could definitely see comparing to others. Now, I
mm,
don't know because I haven't done the research on it, but I could
mm,
definitely see that.
Yeah, in our case, I feel like we don't obviously want people to fully like take away social media, but we still want them to have that connection to the images that they post online. Even in
mm,
our last episode, we had all of our close girlfriends do a little posting challenge, and I think that kind of changed the game on how at least our friend group, use social media. And I've noticed ever since then, we've been posting more and trying to be as authentic as possible.
Yeah. So I don't know how it sounds to you, but to other people, I don't know, especially to my brother, I told him that we were doing this and he was like, that's so easy. Why are you guys stressed? And I was like, we don't normally post like this. We don't
Mm,
normally post our thoughts that we send to our group chat to all of our followers, coworkers, friends we haven't seen in however many years. And so posting more for ourselves rather than for other people, we wanted to shift it from worrying about outside perception to our own perception and what we truly cared about. And so, can you describe in your experience if you feel that bringing more of your actual self, again, not your entire self, but bringing more of your actual self aids online connection?
yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on your experiment, and when it comes to online connection, I really have to say that I prefer the perspective of yourself reconnecting to your own content,
Hmm.
because when it comes to doing all that and then trying to reconnect with others, that really then centers around others again. And
Yeah,
I
right.
really like the whole notion of reclaiming your own content. And it reminds me during my master's, one of my friends and study mates, we had a discussion on something that I wanted to post or not post. I completely don't remember what it was, but she said the sentence, "My Instagram belongs to me."
Hmm.
And it really stuck with me because right now I'm also an activist and I'm always really trying to curate what I'm posting or not, because you never know how people might hold it against you at a certain point in time. And to really just put it out for yourself and to be like, okay, this is the page that I created. This is my digital diary, reminiscing about MySpace, for example. It really detests the logic of current Instagram and TikTok culture.
Hmm.
And it sounds also super fun, right? Because I wondered, having 8 posts per day, that's also work. But if it's fun, it's not work anymore, right? So,
Yeah, exactly. I
so
mean, it definitely was a jarring experience at first. Like, we weren't allowed to curate, we shouldn't put any filters or anything like that on it. And so,
mm.
because I'm not used to doing that, like, even the first post, I was like, literally like itching to like put a caption or a song or something. But then by the end of the day, I kind of started caring less about who's viewed my
Mm.
story, who's engaging with it. I was going about my day. I had a thought, and instead of sending it to the group chat, I put it up on my story. And it was really quite interesting. And I think, yeah, all of us by the end of the day were like, no, if it wasn't so much work, because it is essentially a little bit of work,
Mm.
I would do that every day because it's fun.
Mm.
So it was super interesting. But yeah, I like that quote that you said. Like, what was it again?
My Instagram belongs to myself. It's like my body belongs to myself,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Hmm.
It's an interesting thought because it's this extension of our bodies or of our identities.
Yeah.
And to really say, okay, I'm in control over it and I'm exerting agency.
Yeah.
Even in our like last podcast with our best friends, I find a lot of us kept saying, well, if people don't like it, they can unfollow.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was a big message just because it is our page. And if you don't want to see
Mm,
the content that I'm creating, then it's not for you.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was kind of like a positive outlook just to
mm.
reclaim what's yours and not do it for others.
I'm also wondering, what is the worst thing that can happen? That
Yeah.
you don't receive any likes, that no one's commenting it with a heart, or that maybe some random person is going to screenshot it and laugh. You will never know if someone
Yeah.
did that. And if they do it, it's really on them. So,
Well, exactly. And that kind of brings it back to like the main point of our entire podcast is the social anxiety piece where we're
mm,
constantly worrying about the what ifs and what other people might think. And so I think for us two in particular,
mm,
at the beginning, it was super nerve wracking because those are all the things that you think. And then you have to ask yourself, what's actually the worst thing that could happen? And it's
mm.
really bare minimum, low to the ground, worst thing that could happen.
Can you describe why female users in particular crave authenticity?
I feel like it's also about trying to be understood and really to see that there are really endless ways of existing in today's world. And then when you really just find something that is so inflated and boring and artificial, then it's really hard to resonate with that, right?
Hmm.
So you want diversity. And I think that might be a driver, but that's just a lucky guess, right?
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that because some of the things that we were posting during this challenge, or when people do post more vulnerable, it's out of the norm. And so it kind of
Mm.
takes people out of the mindless scrolling for a second, and it puts them in somebody else's life for even just a split second. And I think people really are drawn to that because it doesn't always happen.
The only issue I think we found with showcasing like more day-to-day activities on our social media is that the women that were doing this challenge were so aware of social media and how surface level it is, and they weren't necessarily comfortable with showing more of themselves. So I think there was a
Mm.
lot more pressure on them.
Yeah, and I think that kind of goes back to what you were saying about how you can't actually show your full self. It doesn't allow that,
Mm.
and how the women were saying how they enjoy vulnerability and they enjoy authentic content, but they don't necessarily want to be the ones to put it out. And so there's that boundary there between someone's real life and between someone's social media identity. And then in our email, you mentioned the context collapse theory. And I was
Mhm.
curious if you could kind of provide our listeners a bit more context on what that is and how it works.
Yeah, so when it comes to context collapse, that's something usually media users try to avoid. So when we think of different contexts, we have family and we have school, university, and work. And when we post online, like one post that you maybe just upload on Instagram is something that your friends are really hyped about, but you wouldn't want your grandma to see. So you don't want these contexts to collapse, right? You want to maybe showcase yourself as being very professional or being a good friend, right? Or when you're on a dating platform, you want to show that you're really hot, right? So it's really about navigating different contexts online. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think there's value into keeping things into different groups, but would you say at all that bringing more of our actual self to our quote unquote best version of ourself or our identity could help prevent some of the more negative impacts of the context collapse?
Yeah, I think for me, it really goes back to the question why post at all?
Yeah.
I mean, of course, you can really try to put as much of yourself out there as possible and then say, okay, I'm really authentic. And if I have a bikini picture of me on Facebook and someone at work sees it, that's just who I am. Everyone probably has already guessed that I have a body and that I sometimes go to the beach. I think that's certainly something people could do. But at the same time, I'm wondering why do people want to be consumed by that many audiences, right?
Hmm.
So, and now I'm polarizing it again, and I'm completely in between where I don't have the right answer, but I can see how both strategies can work if someone really aligns with them. And that's really an individual choice.
Yeah. It's definitely an individual choice. I think I agree. It's almost more realistic to keep those walls up so that you can bring a little bit more of your actual self to
Mm,
each individual space rather than having everything all in one scenario and then your boss is seeing
mm.
your bikini picture and you're like, maybe that's not what we should be doing. But yeah, I do think the goal is to bring more of your actual self, but
Mm,
the context collapse theory kind of helps make it a little bit more comfortable to do so.
yeah. And I think that warrants a lot of self-interrogation
Yeah.
is to ask yourself what is the common denominator that I bring into every context and how can I really lean into that? And then maybe try to just bring your true self to every platform because of course I'm different interacting with my family than interacting with people at work, but of course there must be some kind of core there where everyone agrees, oh, she is hopefully friendly, that's what people say, right? And to lean into that. But the question is really the how.
Mhm.
I don't have an answer to that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's okay. Neither do I.
No. Even I feel like we were just on vacation and I feel like there was
Mm,
a weird balance on what to post for your coworkers to see and what you want your friends to see because you're still on vacation, so you want to show off what you're
mm,
doing. But with your coworkers or like with your grandma following you, you still want to be a certain amount of appropriate. And
mm.
so I feel like there's certain boundaries. There needs to be some sort of solution. I just don't know what it is.
Yeah. Well, they do have the affordances on Instagram to block people from your story, so we
Yeah.
could use that, I guess. I don't know. That's what I do sometimes for like my boss and my, I don't know, uncle. I'm like, maybe this is not
But
for you.
building off of that, I think when we were conducting the posting challenge, our friend Angelina brought up the idea of posting being a chore. And her
Mm-mm.
perspective was more likely than her friends and her family already know what she's doing. So why would she even have to post what she's doing anyways? Do you think that you could potentially lead into like the disconnection, like, and why posting would be a chore just in general?
Yeah, I mean, it is work. Staging the picture, taking the picture, and then selecting the one you want to upload, then thinking about who you want to see it and who you don't want to see it, thinking about a caption, all of that takes work,
Hmm.
right? It can be annoying even. And it's also, again, the question of why would you post to begin with? Why do you want to be consumed? And I can see how it's fun and how maybe someone would also like to just share experiences with friends. And I can also see how people would just like to brag. And I think that's also okay. I mean, that's kind of what social media is for. And I think that can also be very authentic in itself. But I'm just thinking about photo albums, how my parents' generation would keep them. They would just have their photos and enjoy them every couple of years and would just go through these very thick albums. And I wondered, with that many pictures that we have on our phones these days, is that even something that's possible? I wouldn't know how to get that one specific photo from a trip that I took 2 years out of all the photos that I have on my phone, right? And I can see how going through all the steps to post the picture and then to get the likes. And I mean, what do you really get from it when people like your picture or comment it? How that might not be fulfilling.
But again, in this instance, and I think in your research as well, it's all about finding that balance. But our issue is just that we're kind of uncontrollably disconnecting from the images that make up our profiles. And so,
Hmm.
based off of your research and our conversation today, what kind of recommendations or solutions would you give users who are feeling removed from their social media identity?
I think it should be introspection and to really ask yourself, why am I online? What is making me happy? I think being entertained on TikTok, that's totally fair game and nothing to feel ashamed of. And then really dissecting through one's feelings and then also asking oneself, okay, when I'm posting, do I really like what I'm uploading? I think it's very Marie Kondo, maybe. Does it spark joy? And if that's something that then takes place, to just maybe keep on doing what you're doing. But if you realize, oh, I'm feeling under pressure, maybe then just take a break from posting. And then maybe after summer, try it again so that everyone kind of marches after the beat of their own drum a little bit more.
Hmm.
And I think maybe also coming from the background of digital disconnection research to then try out more alternative practices, offline practices. So I was just thinking maybe you and your friends could also create some photo albums for everyone to keep. And I mean, you will have them in 10 years and be like, oh, yeah, this is when we did this project, right?
Yeah.
And I think the possibility of just you holding this album in your hands and then flipping through it will be way higher than you scrolling through your camera roll and being like, just let me look at all these stories from way back when, right? So that could be an idea.
It's a
Yeah.
great idea. I love that idea.
Yeah, we
We're
should do
definitely
that.
doing that.
I love it.
Would there be anything like else that you want just to kind of let our listeners know that maybe we haven't talked about today?
We covered so many different points, and I think it all comes back to reclaiming one's own identity and activity. And I really like that theme. And also to realize that people are so multidimensional and it's never this one answer. And it's often about asking more questions than finding that one solution. And I think that's something that I can really underline here.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I'm so happy we got the chance to talk to you and kind of merge our research together and see where the commonalities were because I feel like there was a lot. So I'm really
Yeah,
happy
yeah,
about that.
so too.
And then before we let you go, we normally share a goal of the week with our listeners for every podcast. And it's usually related to anxiety or something entirely random, or even what we were talking about today. And it's just a goal that we get our listeners to do at some point during the week. Would there be
Hmm.
anything specific you would want our listeners to complete this week for their goal?
Yes, I thought about something. So when
Perfect.
some of my project mates tried to promote our project, they went to libraries and handed out paper envelopes to people and said, "Okay, put your phone in there." so that you can go to the library and really read or do your work or whatever. And then people ask them, oh, can I get one to bring at home, or can I get one to bring for my friend? Are you going to be back tomorrow? So people didn't realize it's really this everyday item. You can get paper envelopes everywhere. You probably already have them at home.
Mm-hmm.
So my challenge would be to put your phone in a paper envelope and just try and see how long you can leave it there. I think it's totally okay to just rip it open again after 5 minutes. And it also really depends who you are, if you have to be available for daycare or if you're taking care of someone who's in need and you need to be available. I can see how that's challenging, but maybe then you can do it in that 1/2 hour that you really have for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And if you feel like you're slightly addicted to your phone, you can try to do it a whole afternoon. Yeah.
That is a great goal that
Yeah.
I'm also going to be doing that today at work. We have paper envelopes at work, so I will be doing
Perfect.
that.
You'll have to grab me some because I
Yes.
don't have a paper envelope. But
Yes.
100%, that's such a good idea, especially when you're like trying to do work or school. You're not even noticing and you're picking up your phone. So we will 100%, everybody at home, go put your phone in a paper envelope for 15 minutes, half an hour, however long you want, and listen to Victoria because she knows what she's talking about.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you so much. We're so, so grateful that you're able to come and share this with us. It's just really, really invaluable to have this conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much. I learned so much today, and I'm glad
Yeah,
that we were
nice.
able to kind
Yeah.
of just bounce off of each other with both of our ideas.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you.
Yeah, good luck with your project.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Yay!
That was great.
That was really good. She was so nice. I
She was
loved
so
her.
nice.
But that went like really, really well. And I'm glad she wasn't fully like, oh, you need to completely detox from social media or whatever.
Yeah.
Because that's what I thought she was.
Okay.
But she wasn't. It was perfect.
No, one time I stole your question though, and I was like, oh no, I didn't mean to do that.
Oh, that's okay. One time I stole your question.
I saw that.
But I really enjoyed that, and I'm so happy that we did that, and I didn't feel any anxiety because she was just a ball of joy.
Yeah, she was so nice. I feel like once I read a question and then I didn't say it properly and I started stuttering, that's when I felt a little nervous. But I was like, it's fine. This is literally just a conversation.
I know. I had a little fluster-do moment as well. And
I know.
was
At
like,
one point you were shaking. I was going to grab your hand.
Oh, was it?
No big deal.
No big deal. Just a little shaky shake.
The shaky shake. She
Shaky
was
shake.
dancing.
I was looking at us though, because we were also on video with her. And at times I was like, oh my God, we need to fix our faces because we look so RBF.
I know. That's what I noticed. I'm like, we look intimidating as fuck.
And
like, I wouldn't want to talk to us.
And I thought I was like smiling, and I looked in the camera and I'm like, oh my God, you're not smiling.
We were
You
nodding
look
a
like
lot.
You just smelt something horrible. Oh my. Anyhow, this wraps up our mini-series. Thank you all so much for listening, and a big thank you to all our participants, to our best friends, Angelina, Anna, and Tamara, and of course to Victoria for helping make these episodes come to life.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. And thank you to our listeners for keep on listening.
Keep on listening.
Anyways,
we love ya.
love ya. Bye.
Bye.